Supply chain problems are prominent during the COVID-19, were prominent during the COVID-19 pandemic amidst a perfect storm of causes, including shifts in demands and, of course, labor shortages and structural factors. The Russian-Ukraine conflict and COVID-19 lockdown in China also exacerbated issues affecting supply in certain sectors, including consumer goods, metal, food, chemicals, and commodities. And while there has been signs of easing supply disruptions earlier in 2022, evolving global factors and geopolitics are now causing new risk and pockets of stress. But the festive season and 2023 just around the corner. Will supply chain bottlenecks continue, and what will need to happen to solve the ongoing supply chain issues and challenges that we face? Let's examine these issues and get questions from our guest who's joining us from the United Kingdom. He's an expert in supply chain management, Dr. Olushola Kolawole. Thank you so much, Doc. It's good to have you on the show after a while.
Thank you so much, Tolulope, and thank you for having me this afternoon.
Let's start with a review, or should I call it an overview of the entire market across the globe, considering shocks and policies that we've seen across the country. What is your observation, or what are your observations?
Yeah, thank you once again, Tolulope. I think for the past few years, I think about 2 years or 3 years ago, we've been having the issue of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has really affected the global supply chain. And as if that is not enough, again, we have the issue, just like you have mentioned, the Ukraine war and that of Russia together, which is also affecting the supply chain. And that the war particularly affected the supply chain in the area of food supply and also the energy crisis. This also contributes to the energy crisis. And also, as if that is not enough, we have the issue of the climate change also. These three factors has been the one affecting our supply chain. And they are very important, and they are affecting supply chain from different angles, from different corners. Now, for example, the COVID-19 that we just mentioned, there's a kind of restriction of movement, which affected both the import and the export of goods, and which also, contributed to the shortage of food materials or even raw materials per se. And the war, like you have mentioned, I said it particularly affected the food supply chain because Ukraine and Russia, they are contributing a lot in terms of wheat and in terms of other food materials. And all this has been giving a serious issue, a difficult time to our supply chain globally. And these three factors are very important. And that is these are some of those things that is really, really affecting our supply chain. And the impact of this, you mentioned the shortage of labor, which has been caused by the shortage of energy. And we also have the lack of raw materials. And this has also been caused by these three factors, which I've mentioned. I mean, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, as well as the climate change. Altogether, the year 2022 has not been that rosy just because of these three factors that we have at the moment. And we are hopeful that probably next year it might be better. But based on these three factors again, I doubt it if it's going to be rosy in the year 2023. And that is just the overview of what we've been facing, the difficulty in terms of our supply chain, in terms of the global supply chain, as it affects the food supply, and also it affects the energy consumption across the world. Thank you.
Great stuff. When you're speaking to an expert in supply chain, we don't expect anything less, breaking it down for us to really understand. But I want to follow up. For me, I'm a journalist and I like to make inquiries. Now, China is still grappling with the fallout of COVID-19 restrictions, lifting restrictions and all of that. While countries like Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari and the team just opened up the whole space, no more tests and all of that. What does this mean considering the importance of China in the entire market space?
Yeah, thank you so much. We all know that the pandemic started from China, and since that time, we are still battling with the impact of pandemic, just like as I've explained before. Now, currently, for the past few months, few weeks, China again has been battling with the pandemic, and the effect of that, it's because the effect of that is on the raw materials. Majority of our raw materials are actually gotten from China. And not only in Nigeria, even some part of the developing world, even developed world, some of their factories are located in China. Some of them they are depending on China for their raw materials. And what is the implication of what is currently going on in China? The implication is that there is going to be a restriction to the movement of some of these goods. So there is a kind of lack of free movement of products and lack of free movement of the raw materials as well. And this will also contribute to the shortage of raw materials, contribute to the shortage of some of the products that are very important to some of these countries. And I said that why do we even allow China to take over some of this over dependence on China? Why do we allow China to be in charge of everything that we produce, even in the world, around the world? In the United Kingdom, for example, there are some products that we depend on China, for us to get some of those things. So, and because of the pandemic that is going on, some of these things are going to be shortage, and some of these things will not be available, especially during this festive period. And that is one of the impact of what is going on in China, and the impact of that around the globe, around the world, be it Nigeria, be it United Kingdom, be it Ghana, be it Sierra Leone. They are so dependent on China, and because of that, what is going on in China will definitely affect the free flow of products to some of these countries.
Indeed, I totally agree with you. But are there any quick wins for both local and foreign economic players now? How can we start to address all of the situations before the price of wheat is already high, price of other foodstuff, raw materials coming into Africa, and of course even some other countries are obviously high. So how do we tend to start to, check some balances?
Yeah, thank you, so Tolulope. I think a lot can be done, but we should just also know that there is no way everyone will not feel the impact of the imbalance in the supply chain. No way. I am feeling it as an individual, and I believe that yourself and the organization also are also feeling it. So we should, the first thing we should have at the back of our mind is that there is no way we will not feel the impact of this. But however, what can we do? In the United Kingdom, have been a lot of policies from the government to ensure that the impact of the inflation, the growing inflation, is not being felt like that on the citizen. So government are trying to build domestic capacity, which is very important. And I want to advise the government to ensure that we build domestic capacity to reduce future occurrence of some of these imbalances in supply chain in the supply chain. So building domestic capacity involves ensuring that our manufacturing sector are doing what they need to do. And not only that, we also need to ensure that we have good infrastructure that will also help the manufacturing sector. That is one of those things that we can do. Government should ensure that they create policies that we reduce the impact of the negative impact of imbalances in supply chain on the manufacturing sector and also on the other sectors. By effective policy, we can develop our own domestic capacity. And I can, like I said before, government are also willing to support the citizen to reduce the impact of the inflation. For example, in the United States, in the United Kingdom here, the government decided to help the citizen by paying some of their bills in terms of energy bills. These are some of those things they are doing. And also the government intervention in Nigeria can as well help. So we need to build our domestic capacity. And after that, we should also ensure that there are a lot of things we can do for the citizen. We can make loan available if possible, just to support them. And I know a lot of government, UK, for example, United States, for example, if increased their interest rate, which is very good. But the implication of this is that it's reducing purchasing power of some of these citizens, especially during this festive period now. People might not be able to do what they need to do because the purchasing power has been reduced because of the government that are trying to manage the inflation rate. So I think one of those things that government can do is also to communicate to the citizens. Let them understand what is going on around the world. We are not only into the situation, everybody around the world are into the situation. So they need to communicate, they need to carry them along, explain the situation to them, and not only that, ensure that we have some stimulus packages that can as well help to reduce the impact of what we are facing at the moment on the citizen. I think these are the things that can be done from the perspective of the government. And also from our own perspective as an individual, we need to adjust our way of life. It is very important. For example, in the UK, sorry, I'm using UK as an example because we are really feeling it here. And a lot of people are back in Nigeria or around the world. They don't know the impact that we are feeling here. So, for example, if you want to on your light, if you used to on your light before, you might reduce that, living in darkness at times, just to reduce the increase in the price of energy and electricity. And not only that, a lot of people are trying to adjust more winter clothes rather than honing their heater every time. This will also reduce some of those the increase in the price of energy at the end of the month. So everybody, including myself, we need to adjust at this time. We all know that what we can buy for 10 naira before in Nigeria, now you can get it for about 40 naira or 50 naira, and the income are not increasing. Here in the UK, a lot of government organizations they are going on strike. Today, nurses are there; they are going on strike. The driver examiners they are also going on strike. Why? They were asking for increase in wages. They were asking for increase for better packaging in terms of their salary. But government might not be able to do that because if they do that, it will definitely affect and contribute to the ongoing inflation. So the point here is that everybody, including the government, the individual, we need to adjust the way we live our life. And we should know that it is difficult at this time. Thank you.
That it should sink because many think that Nigeria is worst hit. And I tell people that this is a global issue. I'm a business person and we see these figures. We see all of the reports coming from all across the world, countries trying to increase rates, trying to do all that is possible to manage the situation at this time. Thank you so much, Dr. Lushola, for that information. But let's wrap up on this note. Manufacturers are supposed to be into massive production. You've touched on them when you were talking in your submission previously, particularly as you move to the yield side. But they have issues with, of course, forex, raw materials, and all of that we've identified. With all of this, what is the outlook for this space? We are moving to a new year, and a lot is on everybody's mind.
Yeah, thank you. And based on the figures that is available at the moment, I think 2023 might be a bit difficult. We might be thinking that we'll be getting out of this, but it might be very difficult. For example, export will be very slow across the EU, for example, and across the world. Why? Because people will not be ready to buy any external product again, due to the reduction in the purchasing power. So therefore, it's going to affect the production. And that is why I am saying that it is very important that government should build domestic capacity. If they build domestic capacity, it will help us in the year 2023. If we said that year 2023, it's going to be all rosy, and I think we are just deceiving ourselves. But we should just get prepared, and just like I've mentioned before, we need to adjust our way of life. If you have been buying a store for maybe $100 before, you might want to reduce that. and because there's going to be a lot of issues that will be coming up in 2023. But we should just prepare our mind and prepare to adjust our way of life. That is just my own advice at this moment, Tolulope.
It's really it seems like the saying I put up yesterday when I was speaking to Professor Kenife. I said it's now cutting your coat according to your clothes and not your size. That's what you're talking. I must thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation with you as usual. And how is the weather over there? And how's preparation for Christmas? Let's wrap up on that light note.
The weather is very, very bad at this moment. Last week, I saw a lady saying that for the past 1 week, she's unable to on her heater.
Wow.
So you can imagine that just because she was not ready to pay high bill in terms of the energy bill. And what do you think is going on now? Everybody is just adjusting. So, and the weather is not smiling at all. It's not contributing positively to what is going on around the world. But we will definitely adjust to Lilope.
Experts in supply chain management there, Dr. Lushola Kolawole, joining us from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much. Probably we'll see, maybe the next time we'll talk on the show will be in the new year. But we always appreciate your time and we appreciate your contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.